Welcome back to another What I Watched in the Last Month video, and this is for the month of September. We're officially entering October, which is exciting. I've got my little Halloween setup over here that I decided to film in front of. And there's a ton of movies to look forward to in October. I'm excited for Hocus Pocus 2, which is literally coming up this Friday, which I don't know exactly when this video is gonna get posted, but it's either out or about to be out. I also really wanna watch Smile in theaters, and I also really wanna watch Halloween, of course. I also really wanna watch Don't Worry Darling. I haven't gotten a chance to see that yet. I also wanted to see Bodies, 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 and that came out of theaters already, and I'm waiting to be able to stream it or rent it. And Pearl is another one that looks good. So there's a lot of good movies out right now. Also, if you are looking for Halloween movie recommendations, I'll link it up above, but I do have a 31 Halloween movie recommendations list that I did last year, and it might come in handy for you this year if you're looking for Halloween movie ideas during the month. I have to start off this video with a movie we did watch in theaters this month, and that is Barbarian. It is definitely a theater-worthy movie. I'm so glad we saw it in theaters instead of waiting to rent it at home. It is a 2022 horror mystery about a young woman who discovers the rental home that she booked is already occupied by a stranger. And then against her better judgment, she decides to spend the night, but soon discovers there's a lot more to fear than just the unexpected house guest. It stars Bill Skarsgård and Georgina Campbell, and as well as Justin Long. And honestly, this is one of the best horror movies I've seen this year. I would say some of the best ones that I've seen include X, probably Orphan First Kill. I mean, there's not a ton of horror movies that I've truly loved this year, so I will put this one at the top of my list so far when it comes to new horror films. You cannot predict what will happen next in this film. It is definitely one of those, like, nobody really knows where it's going. I try not to look into it too much. I think it's best if you try to avoid trailers, but the good news is even if you do watch the trailer, it really doesn't tell you anything about anything. So that's the good news. I love when trailers don't give it away. This movie is full of fun jump scares, plot twists, comedy. There are comedic moments, and when they do it, it's in a tasteful way where it's not overdone or anything like that. It's like nice little moments to break up the tension type of stuff. There's a lot of surprising twists in this film. Like I said, you're not gonna know what to expect. It is gonna go a different direction at some point. In most horror films, the slow parts are when they're building like the character development and you're trying to get the story of like what's going on. And I feel like in some cases, those parts can be kind of boring, or the characters could be not that interesting. In this case, those parts are actually really entertaining. And then by the time it gets to the builds up to the horror part, it's like just a ride. Again, I'm so glad we saw it in theaters. I think it's definitely worth watching in theaters. If you have not gone to see it yet, I recommend it if you like horror. Next up, we have Thor, Love and Thunder, 2022 action adventure on Disney Plus right now, starring Chris Hemsworth, Natalie Portman, and Christian Bale is the villain, Gore the God Butcher. And I did not have any expectations going into this because I'm not a huge Marvel fan. Just in general, I'm not a huge superhero movie fan. So when I heard there was a new Thor film, I was like, whatever, we'll watch it. But I just felt like I was gonna like be on my phone and not pay attention. This movie was so funny. I did not expect that at all. It's probably the funniest Marvel film I've ever seen, or superhero film in general. It does not take itself seriously. It pokes fun at itself and everything about superhero films. I'm not gonna lie, I don't really care too much about the plot or like what was going on in the actual film. I was just enjoying all the comedic moments. The part with Russell Crowe in it, for example, was one of the funniest scenes. I just felt like overall it was just such a fun time, even if I did not truly care about so much about the plot itself. I surprised how much fun I had watching it. And the director is Taika Waititi. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but he is the same director who did Jojo Rabbit, and that movie is awesome. If you have not seen it, I highly recommend it. And it kind of makes sense why he would direct this film so funny and so silly. It is just a goofy, silly Marvel film. Next, I finally got around to watching Elvis, the 2022 musical drama that is currently on HBO Max, starring Austin Butler and Tom Hanks. And I have to say, I give a lot of credit to Austin Butler for playing Elvis. He did an amazing job. I really felt like he was probably the best option for Elvis. It's mostly about the drama between Elvis and his manager Tom Parker over the course of about 20 years. And it's directed by Baz Luhrmann, which is very obvious if you are familiar with his films. He directed Moulin Rouge, Romeo and Juliet. He has a very odd style to his films, kind of like, I don't want to say chaotic, but just kind of like, there's a weird vibe in his films. There's something he does, the style is very like fast forward and slow motion and like close-ups, and I don't know, there's something about the way he does things that are so kind of odd that you can see it in Elvis, but it is definitely not as intense as it is in those films, but I will say I could see it in Elvis for sure. But overall, I felt like I learned a lot about Elvis. I didn't hate the film. I somewhat enjoyed it, but I also didn't enjoy it that much either. I felt like it's a downer of a film. I understand that that was the story, and that is the case, but I felt like it kind of starts quickly in a downward spiral of his life, and I felt like I wasn't expecting it to be, I don't know, I was expecting it to be more fun maybe, and I kind of felt like it was just such a downer that I didn't enjoy it as much as other styles of films that are similar to this, like for example Bohemian Rhapsody or Rocket Man or Walk the Line. Like I felt like those films were more enjoyable, especially Rocket Man, and still delivered the story with its hardships in it, and I felt like Elvis was just so much more focused on the hardships that maybe again his story just had to be told that way, but I just felt like it wasn't fun. Speaking of movies that were hyped up and that I didn't personally find as exciting, Top Gun Maverick. Finally watched it. The 2022 action drama film that is for some reason still in theaters today. I don't know why. When I looked it up, they're still showing it in theaters, even though you can now officially rent it. But we rented it on Amazon Prime for $5. We never got around to seeing it in theaters. I know people really said how much better the experience was if you did see it in theaters. But it stars Tom Cruise. It features Miles Teller, Val Kilmer, Jennifer Cooney, John Hamm. It takes place 30 years after the original film Top Gun. And to be honest, I never cared about the original Top Gun film. And this is probably gonna affect my review of this film, but I also just really didn't care that much about this one either. I can see how certain scenes of the action in the film would be better in theaters and would be more appreciated. I can see how cinematic those scenes would be, but when it comes down to the story and the characters, I don't know. I guess because I'm not connected to the first film, I don't really care. So many people were talking about how Top Gun Maverick's like the best film of the year, and I just feel like I had such a different experience. The same thing kind of reminds me of Everything Everywhere All at Once. That movie, everybody was hyping it up, making it seem like it was the best film of the year, and I didn't like it that much. So, you know, to each their own. Comment down below and let me know if you are a huge fan of the movie, but I just really, it was okay. The next film on the list is Men. This is a 2022 horror drama, and it's an A24 film that we did rent on Amazon Prime for $5. It stars Jessie Buckley, and it is directed by Alex Garland. Harper retreats to the countryside to be alone in the wake of a tragedy, but her unease at the town's leering and uncanny similar men grows into a full-fledged nightmare as her arrival awakens something primal in the forest. Basically, she just keeps on getting harassed by all these men in this town. And the funny part is there's one actor who's playing all these men, basically, for the most part, and it's just the same guy, which I didn't really realize that till after I looked it up. But that's kind of cool. But I'll say to that, I really did not like this film. The last 20 to 30 minutes of this film is just, it's bad. It's uncomfortable, it's weird, and it's unnecessary. It is just ongoing scene that, if you know what I'm talking about, comment down below. But it's just this unnecessary ongoing scene that's so artsy and weird, and I can't even tell you what it is. But if you've seen it, you'll understand how disturbing and gross, and I don't even understand the point of it. Like, I'm sure there's some artsy reason why that was in there, but like for me, it's just stupid, boring to watch, and unnecessary. And I didn't get the point. I just felt like overall it was such a pretentious film that is definitely trying to give social messages, and I get that part, and I hear what they're trying to say, and I'm not against that or anything, but it was just the way they do it is so artsy to the point. I mean, it's an A24 film, and if you know anything about A24 films, you know that they do things a certain style. Like, the films are in a certain style or category, and sometimes it's a hit and miss for me. I'm not always a fan of these slow-paced, weird artsiness to the films, you know. There's a level of art I can appreciate before it becomes, like, to my opinion, pretentious or too ambitious. And for a film that's trying so hard, I still found it incredibly boring, and I felt the ending and the entire film overall felt unsatisfying. And I'm gonna stop talking about Men because overall I can't recommend it. But let me know if you watched it and what you thought. Next up we have Spin Me Round, and this is a 2022 rom-com that I actually just found out about and rented on Amazon Prime for $5. It stars Alison Brie and Aubrey Plaza, and it's about a girl who is flown to an Italian immersion program for cooking, and her romantic getaway turns into a chaos. And this movie is chaotic, basically. The story is definitely all over the place. I found it mildly entertaining. I mostly wanted to watch it because I saw that Alison Brie and Aubrey Plaza were in it, and I just was curious, and I heard that it had to do with like an Italian romance, and I just thought all of that sounded cool. But they try to go into this whole like mystery whodunit murder thing, and I don't know, they take a weird direction with it that I did not expect. It just felt messy, kind of dumb. Like the plot is overall kind of dumb. The ending I did not like at all. It went from light to dark to stupid. That's the best way to explain this film. And with such a talented cast, it's kind of a shame because this had so much potential to be like a really good rom-com. And actually the director of this film is Aubrey Plaza's husband. So yeah, I don't know. Next up we have Sins of Our Mother, and this is on Netflix right now. It is a 2022 true crime documentary that is 3 episodes long, and it's about Lori Vallow and her missing children and the horrific stuff that happens. And this is a really good docu-series for true crime if you're really into that stuff. I'm not even a big true crime person, to be honest, and I binged it all in one day. It could not stop watching it. It has to do with a cult and religion and murder and missing children. It's unbelievable. It's just like an unbelievable story. Again, I don't watch a ton of true crime stuff, but as far as true crime goes, I liked it. I also know the Jeffrey Dahmer thing came out, and I refuse to watch that. I think that is way too psychologically like messed up to watch. As much as I already think that this docuseries was psychologically a lot, the Jeffrey Dahmer one is not something I just don't want to do it. It just sounds like I'm gonna have nightmares. So moving on to something a little bit more lighthearted and some shows we saw this month. Cobra Kai came out with season 5 on Netflix. It is a comedy drama action featuring karate and it's a lot of fun. It's on season 5 at the moment, so we've been at this for a while now. And at this point, I really truly think that Johnny is the only reason I'm really watching the show anymore. I think he's the only real reason I'm still here, but it's a very cheesy, kind of dumb show sometimes. The kids do a lot of fighting for unnecessary, I mean the adults do too. It's a lot of just fighting, karate fighting, and it's silly. And the parts where they're not fighting are starting to get kind of boring, and I just want to see them fight all the time. It's also like a really easy watch in the sense that you can kind of like put it on the background, and you can be cooking or you could be like on your phone, and it's not something you have to like be super invested in, watch every single scene. So it's like a good in the background show, you know what I mean? I don't know. Sometimes you appreciate shows that are not like, they don't require you to be fully invested or pay all the attention to. It's just kind of something you can play in the background. Next up is Love is Blind, season 2, After the Altar. This is something that just came out, and if you are a fan of Love is Blind, then you know what I'm talking about. And if you haven't watched Love is Blind, season 3 is coming out soon, and I will be watching. But I have to say, season 1 entirely, even the After the Altar part, is way better than season 2. I was kind of disappointed with the After the Altar season 2. It's kind of, the drama isn't as juicy as it was in season 1. I found it kind of also just depressing at the end because, spoiler alert, everybody's divorced now. It's not even something you get to see in the After the Altar. It's something that you find out, like, if you just look online, you'll see that literally everyone's divorced. So season 2 was kind of a fail, but season 1 does have some successful marriages, at least 2 I think, and yeah, I don't know. I kind of want to believe Love is still blind. We'll see how season 3 goes. So there's one show I really want to talk about, and it's called The Rehearsal. I've been seeing people talk about this show a lot, and I think it's worth mentioning. It is a 2022 comedy docu-series on HBO Max starring Nathan Fielder, who is also, there's a show he has called Nathan For You, and that one is more of a comedy where he like helps businesses out with trying to like rebrand and market them, and it's actually like a really good show. We also binge watched the whole Nathan For You as well, so if you check that out, I also recommend it. But The Rehearsal is like a totally different thing. It kind of is like about it's kind of weird to explain. Nathan helps people prepare for occasions and events that are coming. So like, for example, in the first episode, there's a guy who has to tell someone in his life that he's been lying about something, and he basically makes a complete replica of the location that this guy is gonna talk to this person about the lie, and then they rehearse the experience and the conversation with actors, and they they practice all the different ways that the person can respond so that he is prepared for the moment, because he'll know all the different directions that the conversation can go. And it's kind of that concept, and it continues, but it does take a different turn eventually in the show, and it's very like, I don't know how to explain it. It's such a weird show. It takes like a psychological turn at some point, and it's unlike anything I've ever seen in a show before. This is definitely like a unique concept that I really appreciated, but it's also so absurd. It's so entertaining. We loved it. I think it was a fun show to binge. It's like, I think 6 or something episodes. It's not that long. And it's like weird in the best way possible, because again, it's just the whole concept of this show is so absurd and awesome. And then I wanted to mention that Bo Burnham came out with the Inside Outtakes on Netflix 1 year later after the original Inside. If you have any idea what I'm talking about, if you like Bo Burnham, if you liked Inside, then you will appreciate the outtakes of it, because I do. It is basically deleted scenes, songs that were not used in the final cut. It's just more Bo Burnham, and if you like him like I do, then you'll like it. Next, we have a movie that I actually really highly recommend. It's called Booksmart. It is a 2019 teen comedy that's free on Hulu and directed by Olivia Wilde. And the reason I wanted to watch it was because it's directed by Olivia Wilde. She's the director for Don't Worry Darling, which is out now in theaters with Harry Styles, and you know, I want to watch that film, and there's a lot of drama and talk about that film, so I needed to watch Booksmart because I heard it had good ratings. I heard good things about it. People were really looking forward to her new film because she did so well with Booksmart. I did look into it, and I did see that Adam McKay and Will Ferrell and a lot of other people were involved in Booksmart. And this is why this movie is so good. I have to assume. It's because it is basically a teenage girl version of Superbad. It's basically about these two best friends who have been, their whole high school experiences spent just caring about school and not really partying or having any fun. And it's their last like day of being seniors, and they decided that they need to make up for everything that they've missed out in high school that one night. And it kind of is just like a one-night journey experience, just all the stuff they get themselves into. It's like I said, it's very reminiscent to like Superbad. It's hilarious. I actually was so surprised how funny this film was and how well done it is. Moving on, we have Romeo and Juliet, the 1996 romance drama directed by Baz Luhrmann that is currently free on HBO Max, starring Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes. And the reason we wanted to watch this film was because we were watching Elvis, who was directed by Baz Luhrmann, and thought, why not watch Romeo and Juliet? Haven't seen it in a long time. It is truly such a beautiful but like weird film. I do kind of love this film. I do also find it really challenging because the whole Shakespeare language thing is difficult if you're not a fan too much of the Shakespeare language. But it's a classic, and I do love it in its own way. My fiance Jeremy looks so much like John Leguizamo. He plays Tybalt Capulet, and there's this one scene where they're at a Halloween party, and Tybalt and Gloria Capulet are dancing, and they're wearing like costumes, where Gloria is in this like Cleopatra costume, and then Tybalt is like in this devil costume. And that is the costume that I really want to do this year because Jeremy looks so much like him. And I think it'll be so fun to recreate those looks. We need like a really good party or event to go to if we're gonna make the effort, but I really wanna do those costumes. And then we watched Moulin Rouge, the 2001 musical romance, also directed by Baz Luhrmann, because we were on a Baz Luhrmann kick, so why not? It is literally one of my favorite films of all time. I fell in love with this movie when I was like in middle school, and it is just one of those films I'm just gonna forever, I'm never gonna like stop loving it. The songs, the music, Nicole Kidman, Ewan McGregor, they are beautiful in this film. I love the Tango de Roxanne. I love the Elephant Love medley. I love the song Come What May. I love everything that they do in this film. Even as bizarre of the style it is sometimes, I think it's so well done. It is the reason why I want to go to Paris and go watch a show at the Moulin Rouge. And I can't talk enough about this film. I love it so much. But moving on to a film I did not love, we watched Synecdoche, New York, a 2008 drama directed by Charlie Kaufman that stars Philip Seymour Hoffman. And before I get into this film, we kind of started doing a thing this month where we both would pick a film back and forth, and whoever picked the film, the other one has to just agree to it and watch it, basically. And this was one of Jeremy's picks, and I hated this film so much. It is about a theater director who goes to New York City and gets a bunch of actors to live out their lives in the constructs of a mock-up of the city of New York. And I don't even understand how to explain what this film is about. It is by far the most pretentious film I've ever seen. It is bizarre, confusing, ambitious, overly ambitious. I literally at some point like tapped out and gave up. I was just like, I'm not gonna try anymore. I'm not gonna try to understand. It's one of those films that you think it starts normal, and then you're watching it and you're like, all right, I get it. And then it gets to a point where it's like so much absurdity is happening and nothing is making any more sense, and you're not sure what's really going on anymore, that I just gave up and I started watching it mindlessly, and I still didn't enjoy it. I just was like, what's happening? This film is so stupid. I don't know. I really don't get it. I try to look it up afterwards to understand what was the film about, and I don't care. I don't get it. Now, the next film was my pick, and it was Her, the 2013 romance sci-fi starring Joaquin Phoenix. Jeremy had never seen this film. I felt like he needed to watch it, and I have not seen it since I saw it in theaters back in 2013. And this movie is just such a beautiful love story between a guy and an AI. The AI is named Samantha, and it's Scarlett Johansson's voice. Not only am I just impressed with the fact that they could make a love story between a guy and a robot, basically, or like a voice on the phone. This movie is just more than that. It's also about the human experience and feelings and emotions and love. Really a beautiful film. That's all I can say. Very melancholy, you know. I feel like that's the perfect word to describe the vibe and the atmosphere of the film. But at the center of it all, it's about love and learning to love. And it's such a good film. If you haven't seen Her, I highly recommend it. The next film was Jeremy's pick, and it is Some Like It Hot, the 1959 comedy romance starring Marilyn Monroe, Tony Curtis, and Jack Lemmon. It's basically these guys who dress up like women and pretend to be part of a female jazz band to be able to disguise themselves so that they don't get in trouble with the mafia. Marilyn Monroe is this like naive, cute character who's just looking for love, and honestly, this film was actually very good. I think it was a good pick on his part, and the main reason we watched it was because I've always said that I'm very difficult with black and white films. I don't like watching black and white films, and he told me that this one would be a good one, and I agree. I really did enjoy it. It was actually very funny. I mean, I haven't seen Casablanca or Gone with the Wind, and those are classics. And now I'm more likely to watch those because I was able to get through a black and white film. And I loved Marilyn Monroe in this. She's just so lovable in this film and adorable. And I really think it's a good one. Now I'm more interested in trying to dive into the black and white film world because that's the one world I really haven't given a chance. And maybe I can actually start doing that. Maybe, especially now during Halloween, I'm thinking of watching more black and white, like OG Halloween films like Frankenstein and Dracula and the werewolf and all those, Creature of the Black Lagoon. And I have never seen those films because I've had this like mentality that I can't watch films like that. Like I need color. And I think I'm gonna try to do it we'll see how it goes. The next film was my pick, and it was Dirty Dancing, the 1987 classic starring Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey, and Jeremy had never seen it. I needed him to at least experience it once in his life. By any means, it's definitely not a movie that I think is spectacular in any way. It's an okay movie plot-wise, but it's iconic. The dancing and the lift, the famous scene at the end, and I just felt like he was missing out without seeing Dirty Dancing. And now he knows. Next film is Jeremy's pick, and it was Barton, Fink. This is a 1991 drama comedy directed by the Coen brothers, starring John Turturro and John Goodman. A New York playwright, Barton Fink, accepts an offer to write a movie script in LA. He finds himself with writer's block when he was required to write a B-movie script. I think bizarre is a good word for this film. Another weird one. Not as weird as others, but like definitely watchable. somewhat enjoyable. It's also a very simple film, like not a ton happens, but also a ton does happen. It's really weird. I don't explain this one. I think it's okay. And then the last film that I picked was The Notebook. The 2004 romance, currently free on HBO Max and Netflix, starring Ryan Gosling, Rachel McAdams. It's a classic, and Jeremy had never seen it, and he needed to know. It's a cute love story, but it's, again, not by any means a special, like, amazing love story. I personally think Titanic and La La Land and A Star is Born, there's so many other better romances out there. Spontaneous, one of my favorite romance, horror, drama, thriller, all of it, but especially the romance. There's so many other films that I would consider or deem to be more realistic or special in the romance factor, but fell in love with the movie when I was 14 years old. To me, it made an impact, and I felt like he needed to like know about it. And I hadn't seen it in such a long time, and now watching it again as an adult, I realize that it's like kind of lame, but it's cute. And it's not the worst. He didn't hate it or anything. If I had to give an award for the worst film we saw the whole month, it was definitely Synecdoche, New York, and he agrees it was not good. And then the best film would have to be Barbarian. Highly recommend watching that in theaters. I'm looking forward to October, watching a ton of Halloween and horror films pretty much every single day. I will try to get to 31 if we can, especially Hocus Pocus 2. By the time this video comes out, if Hocus Pocus is out, definitely comment down below and let me know what you thought. I might be making a video separate, like an individual separate video on my review of Hocus Pocus 2. Why not? I didn't get to include it in this, you know, wrap up, so we'll see. I look forward to talking about a ton of Halloween and horror films for the month of October, so I'll see you then, and toodaloo.